Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got Boogie Bentley of Talking Vols and BVD of Big Vol Daddy. Here we're going to talk all about Tennessee and the upcoming game against the Carolina Gamecocks. And there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot going on. And this is our weekly 12 o'clock, typically 1 hour session, talking about all that good stuff. And, of course, Carolina, man, I'm telling you, this is going to be a heck of a ball game. First of all, I'm thrilled that it's at 7:30 at night at Neyland. I think that's a touchdown advantage right there, and we're going to need it because they're coming in. I got to do something with this phone. Every time I try to do a show, my phone goes crazy.
Popular man.
It just anyway. Spencer Rattler's the hottest quarterback in the SEC right now. And he's got a wide receiver in Leggett, who is probably the hottest wide receiver as well. They're just wearing it out. So I think this is going to be a heck of a ball game. What do you guys say?
That Leggett or whatever that dude's a monster. And he tore it up last week. I hope he got all that out of his system last week and kind of takes it easy on our on our wonderful DBs this week. So it's definitely going to be a challenge, guys. It's, for all the people that have been saying Vols by 50 for the past year, I hope they get used to the fact that it's going to be a war. Your thoughts, Bugs?
Y'all sound so sad and depressed like we're going to a damn funeral. What is wrong with you all? Somebody's got to get some freaking energy around here. Everybody's all doom and gloom. Battered Vols syndrome. Everybody's terrified. South Carolina, Spencer Rattler's a Heisman Trophy quarterback. Tennessee's favored. The line's going up. It's up to 12.5. It started at 11.5. Everybody's like, oh, it's going to go down. It's going to go down. It'll probably be 2 points, but by the time we get boys, and I know what the chat's going to say. They're going to say, Boogie said the same thing about Florida. Yep, and Tennessee should have won that game. Tennessee has better talent. They've got better coaching than the Gators, and they've got better talent. They've got better coaching than the Gamecocks. Man, it's time to get some energy. It's time to get fired up. Dark mode, 7:30. Jay, you said it. The atmosphere is going to be electric. I made a video just today. Beamer wants to play in Neyland Stadium. Do you? You're going to find out. You thought throwing golf balls and mustard bottles was bad. This game has been circled on the calendar for a year for a reason. You took away a national championship opportunity. You took away a college football playoff opportunity. We've got revenge on our minds. It's time for you two to get some dang confidence. You got none, Jay? No confidence?
I didn't say I didn't have confidence. I just think it's going to be a ball game. I think it's going to be tough to stop their offense, and we're going to have to outscore them. That's why we need mid-30s. I think if we can hit 35, we should win this ball game. If we're in the low 20s, I think we're going to struggle. I think we've got to score. And I'm also wondering, are we going to get the Joe we got in the first half of the UTS game, or are we going to have the second half Joe? So that'll be interesting to see. I know he's obviously realizing that running needs to be a big part of his game. And I know he's studying a lot of Cam Newton's highlights and things like that. And I think his knee's going to be okay. I can't imagine he played that whole second half if he'd had some serious problem. So I think he's going to be able to run, if I had to guess. And I think if he's smart, he's going to want to run.
I don't think he likes to run. It's a big problem.
I was going to say, same right there, Boogie. I don't think he likes to run either. And I was hoping last week would have taken care of that with that first big run. Put it mentally in the back of his head. Okay, look, I can run. This is not a problem. And then the injury happens right before halftime. And the only concern I have with Joe Milton is his head game. What's he thinking the first time he has to scramble and he gets hit? Oh God, in the back of his head, oh God, I don't need a leg injury. Hopefully he feels fine and he's Joe cool and he comes out there and says, you know what, they kicked our ass last year. It's time for payback. So there's your energy, Boogie. Joe Milton's going to ball out Saturday night. We're going to win by 50, and everything's going to be happy in Volville. Yeah.
I don't want see. I'm gonna have to clip that because if you remember last year, I was talking about the South Carolina game, how confident we were for that. That turned into a depressing clip of you and I drowning our sorrows after the loss. You know, the thing is with Joe, right? The knee injury is a big deal. Like, how serious is it? Is that what impacted him? Is that why, like Jay said, we had a first half Joe Milton and a second half Joe Milton? Was that because of the knee, or is it because of what BVD said? And it's Joe's always been hot and cold, right? So was it just Joe not being consistent? That is the biggest difference in this offense, is his consistency. If he could be consistent, then this offense could roll. We saw what this offense could be in the first half. It was clicking. They had that tempo going. They had that chemistry. Whatever it was, whatever that missing piece was, they found it. And I get it. It's UTSA. I understand. But that's all we have to go on. We'll find out Saturday night if Joe's ready to go. If he comes out in a knee brace, you guys going to be concerned any more than you would be if he came out just like he normally does? I think that's something to keep an eye on. Somebody in my chat mentioned last night.
I would expect him to come out with some sort of wrap just as a preventative measure. That's what I would expect. I don't know that it's necessarily going to be a brace, but it might be some sort of a support wrap or something along those lines.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about last night. There's a big difference between a brace and a support wrap. You know, he comes out in one of those big offensive lineman braces with like we saw in Forrest Gump when he finally takes off running and loses all the gear. Hopefully he doesn't come out in one of those deals, and it's just get him a copper fit, Let the copper take over and put it out of his mind so he can run for 150 yards Saturday night.
Well, what do y'all?
I think the big question in this game is defense anyway, not offense.
One of the things that we've been talking a lot about is the offensive line. And I was going through the numbers on sacks last night in the show, and Joe's been sacked 4 times. And what is it? Rattler's been sacked 16 or 17 times. Joe is the least sacked quarterback in the SEC, with the exception of Wegman of Texas A&M, who has 3. So we're on the very bottom of number of sacks allowed, and our running backs have the highest running number as far as a yardage per run of any of the running backs in the SEC. So while we've been really, upset about the offensive line, are they really that bad?
I think something you got to look at is the competition, right? And that's what people keep pointing out to me. Look who Tennessee's played. The one game they struggled to run the football was Florida. They ran the ball for 100 yards against Florida. They bounced back against UTSA, run the football for 300 yards. That's what makes it so tough to try to, understand this game and get a grasp on it, because South Carolina has played some legitimate competition. They played North Carolina. They played Georgia. So their numbers probably a little bit more accurate than Tennessee's, who's only played, against the Gators. So it's tough, but when you look at it on paper, you've got a team over here that leads the SEC in rushing and a team over here that runs the football for 75 yards a game. Advantage Tennessee. And then you look at South Carolina. Not only have they given up 17 sacks, and then Tennessee leads the SEC in sacks. These matchups are looking like, they play into Tennessee's favor. South Carolina's offensive line, I think there's 7 guys that are going to miss the game on Saturday. They are down to scraps on that offensive line. And again, it goes back to the one thing. Is Spencer Rattler going to single-handedly come out and beat Tennessee? And I know Leggett is a great player. He's a great wide receiver. We saw in that Mississippi State game what he can do once the ball's in his hands. He can make plays. He's electric. But can Spencer Rattler single-handedly beat Tennessee? Because that's what it's going to have to be. If South Carolina wins, that's what it has to be.
Yeah, I would think Tennessee is going to pin their ears back. I would go after him hard from the start of the game to the end of the game. I'd mix it up some, but I would put a lot of blitzes on him, and I would try to put as much pressure on him, hit him as many times as I possibly could, because I think if you let him have time, he's going to be successful. I've watched that guy play several games this year already, including North Carolina. And North Carolina put so much – they sacked him 9 times. They put so much pressure on him, it was unreal. He still had an excellent game. But they made him rush several times, and he started making some passes that were, towards the end where he was struggling because he was getting hit every single play. I would follow that as opposed to trying to sit back and let him dink and dunk you, because he's a little too accurate right now.
Yeah, because when we sit back like that and let these quarterbacks have plenty of time, we've seen what happens. We get picked apart. So it's a catch-22, I think, for our coaching staff. Do we rush everybody and try and put him on the run every play and hit him whether he completes a pass or not? Or do we depend on our back half of our defense trying to cover these guys? It's tough, man, because we haven't seen any evidence so far that our defense can do that. So I say chase his ass all around Neyland Stadium Saturday night till by the third quarter, or late in the third quarter, he is so tired he can't make a good pass on the run, because that's where he can kill you. He can kill you on the run, and those receivers get free back there, and the next thing you know, you got South Carolina scoring on every drive, and we do not need that this year. We need some 3 and outs. Our defense needs to step the hell up this weekend and ball out for a change against a good opponent.
I don't understand why Tim Banks goes that conservative route sometimes. It seems like in a big game like Florida, it seems so conservative to me. Like, why are you going to sit back and just let them dink and dunk down the field and beat you, man? Just pin your ears back and get after them. And, Rodney Garner met with the media, I think it was yesterday, and talked about making sure your pass rushing lanes, you can't let him get out of the pocket. That's what, BVD nailed it, man. He wants to play backyard football, right? He wants to run around and just throw the rock around. That's what it equivalates to, is backyard football. So you got to stay in your pass rushing lanes, but I'm with you, BVD. Get after him. Pin your ears back. Get after him. These DBs have not shown me that they can hold up in coverage. They just haven't, man. They break down. So I would bring the linebackers. I would dial up. Hopefully Tim Banks gets creative on Saturday night, and we see a whole lot of Spencer Rattler in the dirt. What do you guys think about Tim Banks? Because one of the biggest things I see in the comments, I see in the live chats, is everybody saying, "Oh, fire Tim Banks. He's terrible. He's awful." And let me play a little devil's advocate here. I get it. The competition, right? The competition. They played UTSA. They played Virginia. They played Austin Peay. Okay. What have they done? They've given up 17 points per game defensively. 190 yards through the air, 100 yards on the ground. That's 36th and 42nd in the country. Had a really bad second quarter against Florida, a couple of bad drives against UTSA. I think you need more consistency on the back end, tackling especially. They forced 3 turnovers against UTSA, a couple of interceptions, a forced fumble by Caleb Herring. I don't understand the fire Tim Banks narrative when you're giving up 17 points a game. And I get it. I understand the competition, but what has Tim Banks done through 4 games that would say fire Tim Banks? He can't get it done. I think when he gets creative and he dials up pressure, he's a really good defensive coordinator. Sometimes I think he just goes too conservative, Jay.
I would certainly hold the phone on that for sure. I would wait till way into the year before I'd even consider that thought. I don't think he's in – given what he had to deal with right from the get-go, then he's dealing with an offense that is either scoring or they're done in 60 seconds. You're going to be out there a lot more than most defenses. I wouldn't even consider that till the end of the year, and I would look at the body of work and then, decide from there. I don't even think we're in a position, to where we can even consider that at this point.
I mean, you look back at last year, they improved by a touchdown, right? Scoring defense improved by a touchdown. Do you continue to improve that this year? I think the jury's still out. You're right. You got to wait till the end of the year. That's my counter argument to those that are in the fire Tim Banks camp. I think you got to see how this defense, once you play South Carolina, what do they look like Saturday night? What do they look like in a couple of weeks against A&M? I think Tim Banks can be good. What do you think, BBD?
Well, obviously how good Tim Banks and this defense can be is predicated on how good our offense is. Last year, if we had last year's offense, and I know we don't, I know Hendon's gone, I get all that. But going into the year, everybody just assumed that Tennessee was still going to have the high-flying 50-point-a-game scoring offense. Well, that's not the case this year. So then that ramps up the pressure on your defense. Your scoring average has to come down, and it has. He's gradually brought that down every year, and I get that. But if you're giving up 17 points a game, that's, is for championship defenses, that's a lot.
29th in the country right now through a month.
It's what
29th.
Yeah, that's above average. but it's still, if you want a championship team, you got to get better. And I think, playing devil's advocate, I think that's what Tim Banks is trying to do. It's shown up in our recruiting. It's shown up in our play, to be honest. And I think right now the fire Tim Banks narrative is kind of stupid, because you don't want to get into the coaching carousel even at the coordinator level in this game. And then there's a question too: if you fire Tim Banks, who's available? Most of the good defensive coordinators from last year are head coaches this year, or moved on to bigger and better places. So I think there's a lot to take into consideration. And if the guy is knocking off 6 or 7 points every year, his trajectory is upwards, and you can't get rid of him. Plus, Josh Heupel, I mean, to my understanding, those are good buddies. He's not just going to can Tim Banks because the fan base thinks so.
I would think
Greg Schiano.
Yeah, the guy that's on the hot seat's Martinez. I think that's where he needs to, prove himself this year. I think that if they made any move, it would be in the secondary. And like I said, I would wait till the end of the year on that as well, because let's see what he can do with, now that he's got depth. And we haven't even played the big games yet. We may have a totally different opinion 30 days from now than we have today. Yeah. And there's plenty of time. So I don't see any reason for entertaining that type of thing at all. They asked who was the worst coach, one of the super chats, which is the worst coach. And this will shock you. I'm going to say it was Lane Kiffin, not because he was the worst coach, because he wound up being the worst for us. After he left us high and dry, we wound up having to get Dooley, who was a losing coach at Louisiana Tech, and put us down a really bad path. So I would go Lane Kiffin solely because of that. And I think that's the obvious answer, personally.
Yeah, I mean, the circumstances.
In our lifetime, for sure.
I mean, who hurt us more? Who has hurt us more and put us in a worse path than he did? By leaving the day before National Signing Day, trying to take as many recruits as he could, the entire coaching staff, and basically stuck a knife in our back. And look, and we wound up
body of work. What's he done?
We wound up having to do a panic hire, which was a guy who happened to have a good last name from football, who had a losing record at Louisiana freaking Tech. So that's the answer there, I think.
We did an entire series called The Fall of the Vols, how you went from a national championship in 98 to being at the bottom of the barrel. And that's what it all comes down to, is if you had hit a home run after Fulmer left, you would have been fine, because your roster had talent. You were still a powerhouse. You were well-known. You were Tennessee. And then you bring in Lane Kiffin. I think Lane Kiffin, I don't know, he was so young. I don't know if he would have worked out. I loved him at the time, like some of his game plans, what he did with Jonathan Crompton. But it was the fact that he walked out after a year, like you said, signing day, and then the hire afterwards. It's a combination, man. Combination. Lane Kiffin followed by Derek Dooley. Just oh gosh, that entire series, the Fall of the Ball series. If you've never watched it, it's a playlist on my channel. A lot of good information in that. Like the Indy kid kind of led the charge on that. Did a ton of research put into it. We would have an outline for each show, and we kind of went through eras of the end of Fulmer to Kiffin to Dooley, all the way down the line. But
well, not only was, Lane Kiffin leaving when he did and the way he did so bad, they were trying to take players with them too. So it wasn't like they just left the program alone. They were trying to deplete the cupboard here too. So yeah, that was easily in our lifetime the worst coach.
And that was back when recruiting was so unbelievably important that you would panic hire coaches over it. You were so concerned about a class. I think those days are long gone. With the transfer portal, you don't have to worry about that anymore. And on top of that, whoever's the head coach is the most important hire in the entire state. Even more, he's more important than the dadgum governor, in my opinion. You'd better take your time and get the right person, because it's huge. It has a huge economic impact on your area, on your state, all of that, and my mood.
So, which is the most important thing, right? That's the most important.
Most important for last, how I feel when I watch the Vols.
We can gauge our coaching hires on the number of broken items in our house. How many piles of remotes do you have that got stomped or whatever. At least that's the way it is at my house, because I've broken a lot of stuff over Tennessee football over the years. And I know a lot of people think that's stupid, but I can't help it. I'm passionate. We're fanatics, you know. We can't help it. It's why we do YouTube.
It kind of eased off. Like I used to, man, we talked about this before, but I used to get upset for, half the week. I would start coming back on Wednesday, being all right. But Fulmer in 2005 kind of ended that. Like I was just miserable every week. Every week I was miserable. And I'm like, you know what? I got to stop letting this impact my life. But last season, 11 wins from Josh Heupel brought it all back. That's why we're all miserable right now. It's not good enough to beat UTSA 45-14. It's not good enough to limp your way to victory over Austin Peay. We demand like it took one season to bring those expectations back up.
Yeah, that's reasonable. I think what happened was most of us were uncomfortable with the handing of the torch from Hendon Hooker to Joe. Then he played really solid in the Clemson game, which gave us all some solace of, okay, we're going to be okay. And there was still some trepidation. We're a little bit nervous about it, but he played so good in that Clemson game under that much pressure, the spotlight. He's going to make the next step. And right now we're not 100% sure. We saw the first half of the UTSA game, and he looked great. I mean, he was running the ball. He was making good throws. He was 14 for 19. Everything was golden. And then he got dinged, and it went back to 4 for 12 or whatever the crap it was. So there's that intrepidation again, and he's sitting number 10. He's 10th in the SEC as far as quarterbacks. And who we've played, we've had one tough game. So unless he's going to start running the ball, I just don't see his accuracy getting to the point to where we can be comfortable with him where we need to be. Not that, and I don't know if the answer is Nico or not. I really don't, because given the fact he's a true freshman. So there's a lot of question marks, and going 11-2 got us thinking like we used to, like when Fulmer was here, that, hey, we're good again. So it's meaningful.
I definitely, since you brought it up, we can get into that if you guys want to, but I think we've all talked about for the last week, primarily since this injury happened to Joe, that Nico's not ready. I don't think. I'm not a coach. I don't come on here as a coach every week, but I think he needs that bench time and that learning time and that shadowing Joe Milton around the sideline and hell, even around campus if he has to learn how to be a college quarterback. I know he got here early. I know we've seen glimpses of things in practices and spring games and his 2 seconds on the field against Virginia. I guess that's the only time we've seen him, except for taking a knee against UTSA, which I freaking hate that, by the way. I hate when they bring quarterbacks in to take a damn knee. If you're gonna bring Nico in, bring him in and get him some useful, meaningful minutes, because, okay, now we've all seen an injury. We've all seen what could happen at this level. Well, at any level of football, injuries are part of it, and it can happen. If Nico gets thrown into the fold right now, I unless he just turns out to be the man and balls out and everything's all candy canes and roses for the rest of the year, I don't think he needs that kind of pressure on him his first year. Alabama, Georgia, Jesus, let the kid learn. Let Milton take his 6-year lumps and pass it down. Sorry I took up so much time, but I'm a big believer in Joe's got to be the guy.
I think that's what we want, right? Ideally, you want Joe to be the guy, but at what point is enough, and you pull the trigger and roll with Nico? Is it a loss to South Carolina? Is it a loss to South Carolina and Texas A&M? Like, what is it? When's the breaking point? And I know everybody, the common thing to say is Nico's not ready. He's not ready. Well, the head coach stood up in front of the podium at the end of fall camp and told me that Nico's ready to go, that he is ready to play college football. Was that a lie? Was that fluff? Was that BS? I don't know. BVD, you don't know. That's the thing. None of us as fans know if Nico's ready or not. That's why Josh Heupel makes a whole lot more money than the three of us, because it's Josh Heupel's decision, and he knows who's ready, and I think Josh Heupel knows the quarterback position. But let's go back a year ago. Let's rewind time a year ago or 2 years ago when Joe Milton was the starting quarterback for the University of Tennessee, and not a lot of people were happy when he's out there against Bowling Green and he's missing wide open receivers. We're all screaming, some of us for Harrison Bailey, and that's comical to me. Some people were yelling for Hendon Hooker. It takes Joe Milton getting hurt for Hendon Hooker to get his opportunity, and then he never looks back. So is Joe a practice guy and Hendon's a gamer? Well, I think Nico's a gamer, and there's a reason for that, and everybody that listens to my channel knows why I believe that, because the little birdies in my ear tell me what type of kid Nico is. We've not had a player like Nico on this campus in a long, long, long time. Number one player in the country. You think he's ready to go? I don't know. But when do you pull the trigger, Jay? Is it a loss, or is it like BVD says? We don't want to break Nico. I don't think we can break Nico. I think he's that type of kid. I don't think you break him.
Yeah, they're struggling with that. And then on top of it, I can tell you Joe is not going to give up that position easily. The last time he went down with an injury, he sat on the bench for 2 years, and that's heavy on his mind. He ran out of that tent. Nico was getting ready to go in that game, but he couldn't get in front of him quick enough. He was like, whoa, what are we doing here? I am fine. He was running up. He was jumping. Look, my knee's 110%.
So was that a competitive leader? Was that a competitive leader, or was that a guy that was scared of losing his starting job, Jay?
Both. It's both. I totally get it, man. He loves being the starting quarterback at University of Tennessee. Even more than I think Butch Jones loved being head coach at the University of Tennessee. That's how he loves being the quarterback, and he will drag himself out there. You can just see it. He's not giving up that position unless they carry him off that field, and I kind of respect that. That's like, look, this is my job. You're not taking it from me, not even for a minute. And he's probably has watched Nico in practice, seen some of the gorgeous throws that he makes, and he's like, crap, if this guy comes in here and plays well, all of a sudden we got a quarterback controversy. And the last time we had one, I lost.
I think or
we don't have a controversy.
I think we've already got one on our hands. So, but if Joe's limited and he's going out there beat up, and we go back to the start of the show, we need him to run the football. Now your offense is limited because Joe's not healthy.
Yeah, the most tragic part of that is let's say we lost South Carolina and Texas A&M, but he played okay. We got beat 35 to 20. Let's say he throws 60%. He throws a couple of touchdowns, no interceptions. A lot of that 60% are the little sideline bubble screens. And then Texas A&M wins by 3, and he plays okay. And he's playing at a high level according to coaches, and he's doing all these right things. But you're, 3-3 at that point. That's the tricky part.
So what is our official stand here as the 3 head coaches of the University of Tennessee? My stance is you go with Joe as long as you can. And then if it becomes Nico time, then fine, you go all in. Boogie?
Dude, I'm so all over the place with this because I want Joe to be good so bad. That UTSA game, I see my 6-year starting quarterback get wrapped up and his knee get bent up backwards, and he goes to the tent. I say, sit your butt in the tent. We're up 31-0. We're going to trot Nico out there, and he's playing the entire second half. Now, you get over there and be a good teammate. And if you can't do that, then we'll just let Nico be the guy. Can you be a good teammate? You've been a good teammate before. I would have rolled Nico out the second half against UTSA. Now, that didn't happen. Joe came out. He struggled. Nico, the 2 series, people saying that Nico didn't look good. That's ridiculous. Nico got 2 drives. First one, he hits Dante Thornton right in the hands. He drops it. You run Selden for a yard. You got a 3rd and 9. Nico gets pressured. Incomplete pass. He comes back out for the next drive. You run the football 2 straight times. You got 3rd and 9, and the offensive line gives up a sack. Nico gets killed. That was his opportunity. That's what we're going to judge him on. Like, we've not seen what Nico can do. For me, man, I swear, I recorded Locked On Vols with Kaner this morning, and he asked me if this is a must-win game on Saturday night. It certainly feels like if Tennessee doesn't beat South Carolina, we're looking at 8-4 best case scenario, maybe 7-5. Why not get Nico ready for 2024 and sell that to your recruits? Hey, we're getting the kid ready. Generational talent, number 1 player in the country, 5-star, highest rated recruit we've got in the modern era. We're rolling with Nico, so we may take some bumps and bruises. But guess what? We're going to be ready to roll in 2024. That's my sales pitch. They lose to South Carolina, my content's probably going to be full steam ahead on Nico Iamaleava.
Yeah, I would have played him in the UTSA game for sure. I would have already given him meaningful minutes. Just as, like I said, I would have opened up the quarterback competition in the previous game, but as far as starting the UTSA game, but he came out the way he balled out in that first part. That might have not have been the correct way to do it, but he would have got some play in that second half rather than mop up duty. And plus, I would want to see him with the first. I want to see him with the absolute best players on the team instead of mop up duty with all the second and third stringers. That also plays a role. And then it plays a role is when you're way ahead and you're just running the ball and you're just doing this pedestrian type stuff just to run the clock. He's not playing football at that point. He's just mopping up, for lack of a better way of putting it.
The sad thing is the way that second half started. And I wonder if Heupel was going to trot Joe out there and run one series and then put Nico in. But the way that second half started, that third quarter, UTSA, that long scoring drive, and then Tennessee goes 3 and out, and then they go right back down the field and score again. Now it's 31-14. And I'm sure in Heupel's mind he's thinking, good Lord, are we going to get a stop this entire second half? But you got to leave your starting quarterback in at that point, BVD. It's 31-14. You can't bench him at that point.
Yeah, and he was struggling then, and it looked like they had changed the play calling to accommodate the knee injury, in my opinion. So yeah, your defense is out there struggling. Your offense is out there struggling. You got to leave your in your mind, your best guys out there to try and get out of this situation, which they did. Man, look, it's as fans, our mindset, I think, is always going to be different than the coaches. And I don't know what the coaches are thinking. None of us do. You said that earlier, Boogie. None of us know, what the coaches are thinking and what's going on behind closed doors. So my mind's all over the place. And yes, I think it all comes, maybe not all, I think it all comes down to these next 2 games. If we lose to South Carolina, depending on how we lose, if it's a tight game, I can almost take that. Don't want to lose, hate losing, had enough of that over the last 15 years. But if we're going to lose to South Carolina this year, it's got to be a close game. If not, then you got a controversy for the Texas A&M game, because they have the potential to come in here and run us out of our own stadium. Whether they will or not, who knows with that bunch. I mean, we could send Gaston Moore out there maybe and beat them. It just depends on which A&M team shows up. But right now the focus is on these Gamecocks and what we're going to do to stop Rattler. It's a defensive game, in my opinion. It's got to be. I think our offense, with Joe Milton, hurt or not hurt, is good enough to score enough points to beat South Carolina. We're going to be in the 30s, in my opinion.
I can tell you one thing. If I'm Banks and I'm Heupel, Spencer Rattler might win that game, but he's limping back. I'm going after him full steam almost every play. I'll occasionally mix it up, but I'm going to go after him hardcore. If he's going to beat us, he's going to feel the pressure. I'm going to put as much pressure on him as I possibly can. And we've got some guys that can do it. In one, Beasley, some of those edge rushers. And I would blitz some of those cornerbacks from time to time and just bring them in from the edge and just force him to make some mistakes, because he can throw an interception if you put enough pressure on him. And with that kneeling crowd, if we got a pick six or something on him, man, you talking about changing the momentum, because this is going to be a game of momentum, no doubt. And they're going to try to take our crowd out of it. We can't let that happen. Just go after him. Look, he's going to score some points. That's going to happen. Try to make some plays to where you really hurt South Carolina. And that's just be aggressive. I would be as aggressive. And it's going to be so loud. They're going to have a tough time on that offense trying to figure out how to make calls, and he's going to have a real tough time changing plays. If he gets in a wrong play and then tries to change it, that crowd's going to amp up, and they're going to get false starts. They're going to have all kinds of problems. So the more pressure we put on Rattler, the better.
I think BBD brought up a good point. By the way, hey, Wayne, have a good night, buddy. Hope you have a great evening, Wayne. We'll see you next week, buddy. Can't wait. Always enjoy seeing Wayne in the chat. He's a good person. Good man, that Wayne Shelton is. BBD brought up a good point, though. You get after Spencer Rattler and you hit him. Maybe you don't necessarily get home, right? But you constantly have him rolling out of the pocket, hitting him, putting pressure on him. Maybe when we get down to that fourth quarter and he needs to make a play, he's gassed. He's exhausted because he's been going, balls to the wall trying to save himself the entire night. I think that's a good point.
Well, hopefully that happens. And my biggest concern in this game is whether or not the number of 3-and-outs we have. 3-and-outs are defense killers for us because, let's say South Carolina goes on a 14-play, 7-minute drive like UTSA did to start the second half. Then we come out and we're 3-and-out and they're right back out there on the field. Our defense is right back out there on the field because if our defense is chasing him around all night, he's not going to be the only one gassed. It takes a lot of energy to chase people. We know that from playground. And, I know we've got depth and all that, but I want him and their offensive guys to be the ones tired in the fourth quarter, not our guys. Not because we've had a bunch of 3-and-outs and our defense has had to live on the field all night. That can't happen. Cannot happen.
Well, the thing about Spencer Rattler, he's not Bryce Young and he doesn't have Alabama's offensive line in front of him. So, I thought our defensive plan against Bryce Young was really good, even though they wound up scoring the 49 points. He literally was a magician out there. How many times did we have him that night? How many times did we hit him that night? And there's a reason he was the number one player in the draft. He did that to everybody. Texas had him dead to rights to win the game last year. And somehow he does this roulette thing, pops up and runs in for a touchdown. That's Bryce Young. I thought our game plan against him was proper, put as much pressure on him as possible. South Carolina's offensive line is porous. They're not nearly as good as Alabama's. And Spencer Rattler is not nearly as quick and elusive as Bryce Young was. I would do the same game plan. Just hit him, put pressure on him, sack him, cause him to make a mistake. Because I just, with his confidence level where it's at, you can just see he knows what he's doing. If you let him sit, it's going to be a long night.
And you talk about momentum, and I feel like for our offense, Tennessee's offense, to be firing and clicking, those drives like BBD's talking about where they go 14 plays, it's a 7-minute drive, I think that kills our offense. I think our offense wants to get out there and get going. So why not just play aggressive? Would you rather them have a 14-play drive that goes 75 yards and eats up over half the quarter? Or do you want to get in their face, play aggressive, try to force? I thought that's what this Tim Banks defense was going to be. Oh, we're going to play fast. We're going to play aggressive. We're going to get in your face. Press the wide receivers, get in their grill, and bring heat all night long. And if they beat you, then go out there and you go do what you do on offense and go score. The problem is we don't have Hendon Hooker, and none of us have the confidence that if this thing does end up in a shootout, that Joe Milton's going to be the guy that gets it done. Well, that's just where we're at as a fan base. That sums it up.
Yeah, pretty much. Because he's not shown us that he can do that.
Is there a
name a shootout that he's been in? You could name 6 with Hendon Hooker. The Pittsburgh game was a prime example. That Pittsburgh game, that's when he already had me in the first year, but that Pittsburgh game when he scored 2 touchdowns in a row in overtime back-to-back after he got that one called back, and then what he did, of course, Alabama's, will live forever.
Legendary.
But that guy he's clutch. He is very, very clutch in big game situations. We've not seen that from Joe. Now, he might surprise us later on in the year. I feel like he's growing. That UTSA game's the best I've seen him move, the best I've seen him throw the ball. And I felt like he was making real progress there. And then he got hurt.
And then but did he get hurt, or is it typical just Joe? It's Joe being Joe, man. I feel like we're having this conversation. Sometimes I'm like, we are such idiots. He is a 6th-year senior, and the 3 of us clowns are still sitting here hoping, please let Joe figure it out. We're a third of the way through the season of this guy's 6th year of football, and we're still praying to the football gods that this guy figures it out and gets consistent down the stretch. Is there a gamer sitting on the bench? I'm going to keep saying it, man. I don't care. We got a gamer sitting on the bench. I truly believe that. Is Joe going to figure it out, BVD, with a third of the season gone? The guy's 37 years old. He's about
it's game 5, man. I mean, you know, he should have figured it out by now. Should have figured it out 2 years ago, honestly. But here we are, like you said, a third of the way through. Maybe we do have a gamer sitting on the bench. Maybe we do. The worst that can happen if that scenario rolls around is, oops, we were wrong. Okay, well, as a fan base, we move on and move to the next guy. That's why I say all the pressure in the world would fall on Nico's hands or feet or both. You know, God, man, I don't know, Boogie. Shit.
But if he can't handle that pressure,
this is the weekend Joe shows up. I don't know.
Oh,
I mean,
we're so delusional. The three of us are so delusional and emotional. But it's like if Nico can't handle the pressure of going and playing on the road against Alabama, is he ever going to be able to handle it? Like, is he ever going to be that dude if he can't get ready for a road game in the SEC?
Maybe he's the type of guy that just that environment and that pressure is what makes him run. What makes him click. I hope so, man. Well, you know, look, I'm as big a Nico fan as either of you guys.
How is Nico too fragile to play, but Peyton Manning was fine to play as a freshman back when you could kill a quarterback?
So was Bryce Young. Didn't Bryce play as a freshman?
Bryce Young was 170 pounds.
Yeah, that's bullcrap. That's a cop-out. That's a cop-out in a narrative that people just keep repeating. It's kind of like the Nico's not ready thing. Like, wow, how do you know? How do you know? You don't know that he's not ready.
We don't. I don't have a clue.
I have no idea. He may come out there and be awful. He may not be ready. I have no idea.
It's going to be hard to say until he actually plays a real meaningful down, which he's not had. It's always been mop up. We're going to run the ball. We're just trying to run the clock out. And he's out there with the seconds and the thirds. This is the ideal offense to put a freshman in because you can make it simple enough. I mean, hell, you can do the bubble screens. You can do all that and just immediately throw the ball. You can hand the ball off to these guys. You can do a few running plays where he runs 5, 6, 7 yards and gets down immediately. There's a lot of things you can do with that offense when you spread it out like that. And especially now that you cannot punish the quarterback. You can't land on the quarterback with all your weight and crushing. That's immediately a big time penalty. If you hit him with the crown of your helmet, you're out for a game. So there's a lot of things you can't do anymore. This would be the ideal offense for a young guy to be in, and especially one with his talent. And nobody's going to expect him to go out there and just kill it. You know, it's not like he's expected to go out there and be Hendon Hooker. We don't know what to expect. But what else are you going to do? If you don't want to do that, let's say he's too fragile. Put in Gaston Moore occasionally. Let's see what he can do. He looked fine in the spring game, and he's certainly not a freshman. He's been with Heupel for 3 years. You've got to have somebody ready to go.
Put Navy in.
That's what gets me. I mean, who's had any meaningful plays other than Joe?
That's it.
That's it. Not a soul this year.
4 games, and 3 of them were supposedly easy teams, or at least 2 of them. How do you not have some meaningful plays for either one of those guys?
Because we limped our way to victory. That's the whole that's why everybody in this fan base is so concerned about this game on Saturday night. And Vegas is looking at it and saying, well, I mean, Tennessee's pretty much almost a 2-touchdown favorite. What do they know that we don't know? Why is Vegas putting Tennessee at 12.5 points?
I'm wondering if they're not doing the same thing they did with the Florida game, and they're not taking it into consideration that we probably know the Vols better than they do.
I don't know, though, do we?
No,
I'm not building gigantic hotels and casinos in my backyard.
Yeah, Vegas has got a pretty good reputation of being right.
Oh my gosh, battered ball syndrome.
And it's actually pretty natural for people to see the negative in their own team more than a lot of other people do that are more neutral, because we're living and dying with every game, whereas they're not. They're looking at it in a neutral position of, hey, he's not nearly as bad as you think he is. He's actually a pretty good quarterback with possible first-round ramifications. They still think he could wind up and be in the first round. Heck, Anthony Richardson, they went 6-7 last year. and he threw for 52 or 53%, and he went in the first round, 4th pick.
So if home field advantage is automatically good for 7 points, then really Vegas has got us as a 5.5-point favorite.
No, it's more
That
like 3.
That seems more realistic, don't it?
Isn't home field advantage like 3 points?
I don't know. I'm basing it on what I think our home field gives us a touchdown advantage. I think Georgia's gave them a touchdown advantage last year. I think, well, I started to say Alabama's going to have a touchdown advantage on us going into that game, but who the hell knows? Who knows? We're just, this is our job now. You know, it's our job to come on here as fans and speculate and think we're right and hope we're right when whatever scenario comes down the pike. I hope by the end of the year we're all convinced that Nico is the second coming of Peyton Manning or T. Martin, because Peyton never won a natty here, you know. So hopefully Nico is the man at the end of the year, and hopefully it's not because we've limped home against South Carolina, Texas A&M, Kentucky, Alabama. I mean, look at our schedule, guys. We got, with this team, the way this team is playing right now, we got 4 or 5 games that could very easily be L's. I don't think it's gonna be that way. But
Tennessee's going to be favored in every one of those games except for Georgia and Alabama. 100%. They're going to be favored. They're going to be favored the next game against A&M after the bye week. They're favored against South Carolina. They're going to be favored against Missouri and Kentucky and Connecticut and all Vanderbilt, all those teams.
If Kentucky's undefeated when we play them, will we be favored up there?
That
Kentucky's
would be
having a tough time.
If the wheels fall off.
Well, even though they're undefeated. Go ahead, Boogie.
No, I was just going to say, if the wheels fall off, maybe, but I doubt it. I think Tennessee's going to be – what we need to happen is Joe needs to come out and play like he played in the first half against UTSA. Yeah. That's what we need to happen. Like, he doesn't even have to do too much. He doesn't have to do too much. Keep a few of those. Run the foot. I would love nothing more than them to come out very first play on offense, and it's a read option, and Joe keeps it and gets hit and pops right back up and goes right back to running the next play. That's what we need, because then you'll know, okay, Joe's ready to go. Like, he's not hurt. It's not going to be an impact. He's not going to be limited. I want to see him run the football. If he doesn't run, gosh, it ain't going to be what Vegas thinks it's going to be. Maybe they got the MRI results. Maybe that's why the spread is what it is. Maybe they know.
Yeah, that's possible. That would be knowledge worth having. Now, here's Dakota VFL says Connor Wagman of Texas A&M is out for the season. He has broken bones in the foot.
Yeah, I saw that right before we went live. I saw that come out.
Okay, well,
the kid from LSU, I think, is going to be their quarterback. Is that right?
Oh yeah, they brought in a high 4-star guy that transferred, right? So Wegman must have won the starting role. Obviously, been playing the whole year.
Yeah, it looks like he's out. It's as of an hour ago. He's out for the season. Max Johnson will step in as the Aggies starting quarterback.
Well, that could be a good thing for them. You never know.
Look at BBD always looking at the positives for the other team.
No, I'm looking at the positives for us too now, Boogie. Damn it! Don't you go there.
Yeah, it's the odds of us seeing Nico further in any meaningful plays is looking less and less likely the tougher the teams are that we play. That's just
unless you just roll with him, right?
Unless you just make a decision.
Yep. Yeah. 100%. That's why it was so important, man. That's why the UTSA game, the Virginia game, the Austin Peay game were so important to get Nico that run early and help him develop. But goodness gracious, just wasn't in the cards.
Y'all take over for 1 second. I've got to replace my fan here real quick.
I was looking at Max Johnson's stats to see if I'm nervous or not, but we'll make him look like an MVP.
I mean, I'm not nervous. I'm not nervous. I've had that Texas A&M game on my radar since way back in the offseason as a game that I'll just be worried about. I mean, I can't help it because teams like that scare the shit out of me, Boogie. All the talent in the world, but you never know which one's going to show up. Like, look at the egg they laid against Miami.
Yeah.
That's the team I hope rolls in here. You know, all the hype in the world, and then they drop a turd on us, and we end up beating them by 3 touchdowns. That's the A&M that I hope we see.
Yeah, I mean,
that's big. Them losing their starting quarterback. That's tricky. That's very tricky. And we've got an off week in between, do we not?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll be seeing them in 3
in
weeks.
between this game and A&M or after A&M?
No, after South Carolina, Tennessee's off.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got that bye week. Oh, well, let me ask y'all this. Since these games are we're seeing a lot less football. We're seeing about 10% less football because of the rules changes. Do you think they'll get rid of the bye long term, maybe in a few years, and add another game?
I don't think so, because I think we're just going to see the playoff continue to expand. So that's where you're going to get extra games is there on the back end, I would imagine.
I'm sorry, I'm concentrating on Papa J's comment. I didn't know turd was bad language, Papa J, but my apologies to the wonderful people on the Sports Talk J channel.
You're cussing while
For letting
apologizing
a
for
turd
cussing.
and a shit
What are
come
you
out.
doing?
And I hear Jay say it all the time, so get off my hind end, Boogie.
I didn't say anything.
Yeah, but yeah, I got a reaction out of you on dropping the S-bomb.
Made me laugh because you were apologizing for cussing.
Yeah,
and you
but
cussed in the apology.
Okay, that was a moment. That was a funny moment. You're welcome, John, for giving Sports Talk J another funny moment. So. Sorry. Hey, look, I am who I am, right? I've survived everything a human can possibly survive. I ain't concerned about my language.
Dylan Elam with a great comment. Oh, man. I love YouTube.
Papa J. Papa J's popular in here today.
Papa J's everywhere, man. He just follows us all around the internet. I love it.
We are scared to lose Nico. 8 million reasons why. We're not going to lose Nico. He's not going anywhere. Would you leave? Would you leave?
He ain't leaving. He ain't going somewhere
First of all, you're guaranteed the starting position next year. You're making $8 million over 3 or 4 years or whatever it is, probably 3.
Yeah, it's 3.
Why would you leave?
Just because his last name is spelled Amaliva don't mean
that's what it is. Yeah, I'm about to leave you. Yeah, he's not going anywhere. If he does, please do, because anybody that is that foolish to leave and you've not even proven anything and you're guaranteed this money and you're guaranteed the starting role pretty much, Lord, that's crazy to even consider that. I don't see it.
He ain't going anywhere. I can promise you that.
No. And we don't even know what we've got in him yet. Like I said, I cannot believe we've not seen one meaningful snap out of him. That just
What's the matter,
blows my mind.
Are you tired of the Nico talk?
No. I just got reminded of what's going to happen to me if we lose this game. See, you guys are smart. You don't make bets on YouTube. I'm an old dummy. You know, I made a bet with someone that if Tennessee loses this game, I have to get slapped in the face with a tortilla with mustard on it. So.
Oh God, it's the mustard be the worst part for me.
Ugh. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing good going to come from that. So
I couldn't deal with that Duke Mayo game either. Dumping the mayonnaise.
There ain't no way that's happening.
Gosh,
I do not want that on me under any circumstances. It's gross.
There's some people out there that
talk about Beamer. We got to talk about that knucklehead a little bit.
What an idiot.
That guy, there is just something about him that is highly annoying. And I don't really know how to put my finger on
it. Face. The guy drives me nuts just talking.
There's fake confidence. Fake confidence is what he is. He pretends to be confident. He's not. I made a video on him just right before we went live. I made a video on him because he sits there and talks about, we want to play in Neyland Stadium. This is what you sign up for. Yeah, you'll find out Saturday night if you want to play in Neyland Stadium. That stadium is going to be electric, man. Every one of us, we all know what happened. We all remember that game, man. And yeah, your coach Heupel's probably trying to keep the team focused and dialed in, but fans are going to bring it Saturday night.
Your boy's going to be there. Dauber's going to be there.
My entire post-game panel is going to be there. You guys do a little work around here. Coach, if he's still in the chat, you do a little work. Quit going to games and having fun.
Well, I love that it's at 7. When I found out it was at 7:30, that's why when I found out the Florida game was at 7, I was like, oh, crap. Because that's the same thing that happened when we went to South Carolina, and it was a 7 o'clock game. ESPN showed up. And even if the team wasn't fired up to play yet, they're going to be. So that's the perfect time. You're going to have the fireworks. You're going to have all the TV eyeballs on you, and all the crowd has had all day to get out of their mind.
Liquored up. Liquored up is the word.
Liquored up. Grandpa's cough medicine. They're going to be, oh man, it's going to be so much more fun at 7:30 than it would be at 3 or noon.
Neyland Stadium's going to smell like natural grass, disappointment for the visiting team, and liquor. That's exactly what it's going to smell like Saturday night about 10 o'clock. Because you guys know, you've been to games there. There's times where it just, no matter where you walk, you get a whiff of Jim Beam or Jack Daniels or something, especially in the bathroom. That place is going to be eat up with it Saturday night. And yeah, it should be Alabama 2.5 or whatever part due.
Well,
so
of course,
if you're going to that game.
Yeah, of course, they're selling beer there now. So that's, if you can get one. My understanding is you got to stand in line for about a half an hour.
That's when you just send somebody.
Yeah, have them buy as many as they can.
Yeah.
I think they're limited to like 2 or something. I don't know. I hadn't been going through that whole process, but.
Drink safely. We don't want you leaving Neyland Stadium drunk, even though you were probably hammered when you walked through the door.
Yeah, I would think.
You go in hammered and you sober up during the game. That's my.
That's the way it used to be.
Yeah.
Now if they're selling beer, you can't do that.
Yeah, you just keep on drinking.
Well, how many Uber drivers are going to make money that night?
None. Everybody will drive drunk. People are stupid.
Oh, God, I hope not. I hope the Uber drivers are bumper to bumper.
A lot of stupid people in the world, man. A lot of stupid people. I think the crowd's going to make a difference. Something from that Georgia game with South Carolina was pre-snap penalties. They struggled with the noise in Athens. So I think that's something worth keeping an eye on, too. I think Tennessee can impact the game. Well, they had a couple of turnovers against Georgia too. I think that will be key. Can Tennessee force some turnovers like they did against UTSA? I don't. Just Spencer Rattler though, he just doesn't seem like he's making many bad decisions right now. Was he have 2 interceptions I think on the year?
Yeah, you're gonna have to force him to screw up.
Yeah.
If he's
what was he last week? Like 20 for 22 or something like that? Something ridiculous.
Dang near perfect. Yeah, he was about perfect.
When he threw 90, it was 90%, and he's throwing 75% right now, which that's 5 points better than Hendon Hooker last year, which blows your mind because Hendon was very accurate, and he threw what I would call an extremely catchable ball. Hendon threw that ball that would come at you like a butterfly with sore feet. It just landed in your hands just so nicely. He had that nice curvature on his arc. He had that good arc, all that good stuff. Spencer's just real accurate. I was watching him play the last couple of games, and he throws a nice pass. He does. I guess he's finally hitting the level that everybody thought he was going to do at Oklahoma. We'll see. Going to have to put a lot of pressure on him, but we can do that because their offensive line's not that good. It just is not.
They're awful. They're banged up. Tennessee's got to take advantage, man. You got to. Rodney Garner's the best defensive line coach in the country for a reason. You got to stay in your pass rushing lanes. Keep him bottled up. Do not let him get out of that pocket, man. All we need is to blitz, bring pressure, and then let him sneak out of the pocket, and it's backyard football, right? Our secondary will not hold up. They won't. You got to get to him. Got to get him to the ground.
Yeah. It's going to be
14.
Man, and you're going to have to do it for 3 plays too, because if it's 3rd down and 15, he can still get that first down. I mean, that's when you've really got to put that heat on him. How many long 3rd downs did they get at Florida? 3rd and 8, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 9.
That's sadly what I was just thinking when I was mentioning the crowd. I was like, well, if I'll start 1st and 15, Spencer Rattler will still run around and convert it. But I wasn't going to speak that into existence like you just did, so thanks for that. Well, I'll be thinking about it.
I know. We're all thinking it. It's all there.
That's the most frustrating thing in the world, to have them right where you want them, but then you find out, nope, they got us right where they want them. So
how many times did Hendon do that to people last year? Yep. How many times did he pull out some unbelievable play? The run against Florida where they had him.
Dang it! Why are we talking about Hendon Hooker again?
I like talking about
legend,
him. Everybody gets so upset if you talk about
Damn it, he's gone, man.
How dare you talk about a guy that was fantastic and he was here last year? Why is that
let's wait 5 years down the road when we've been through Nico's excellence, and then we can say, oh, he harkens back to Hendon Hooker days, you know.
Yeah. Well, Joe's sitting in 10th place out of 14 quarterbacks in the SEC. Let's just call it what it is. And he's being helped with a lot of bubble screens to keep his percentage at 62%.
At least he's not last.
Well, okay. Oh.
I ain't got a response to that. I don't have a response to BVD.
There is no response, Boogie. Our quarterback is not last in the SEC, and we got some good quarterbacks here. So there you go. I mean, there's the old saying again, it is what it is.
Well, here's the thing. We went into this year with the full knowledge that we were counting on Joe in a major way, and if it didn't pan out, we were going to be in trouble because you've got a true freshman in Nico, and even the very best true freshmen normally struggle. It's really rare to get the Bryce Young or the guy that came from Clemson. Those are the two outliers. And even Peyton Manning was like, 6-5 or something his first year. So
what if Nico's better than Bryce?
That's a totally different league. If you watched his high school highlights, I mean, those teams he was playing against, give me a break. I mean, he was just so much better than everybody on that field. It was ridiculous. It just was absurd. And now when you get in this SEC, man, I can see why people are concerned about getting him hurt. I understand that perfectly. But crap, Hendon Hooker got hurt and nobody touched him.
That's the sad part about it.
It's football. It's a violent game.
Yeah. It's just a small wonder that more people don't get hurt than they do in this game at every level. It's a violent game. Well, we'll just say starting in the middle school level. There's violent collisions on every football field every day. So we should be thankful. Well, anyway.
All right, guys. We've done we're right at 1:00, and we have talked and talked. I think we figured it all out. I think we're fine.
Yeah, let's just shut YouTube down till Saturday. We covered it all. Y'all don't need to go anywhere else. We talked about everything.
Oh, Lord.
Well, you do need to show up to my channel tomorrow night because we got Boogie's favorite person going to come on and argue some South Carolina football.
Uncle Lou or Jackpot?
No, Carolina Jackpot.
Yeah, I knew
he's
he
going to be riding around in his car with a bunch of boxes in the back.
I hope so.
Those are
probably not. He'll probably be riding around in his living room throwing a few back if I'm lucky.
Good for him. I hope y'all have a great show.
We're going to. So everybody show up for that.
All right. We're going to end on that perfect note. Folks, we appreciate you coming to watch us today at noon, and we'll see you next week. We will be on, is it BVDs or Boogies?
Yeah, BVD next week.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be on BVD's channel at noon next week, Wednesday, to talk all about South Carolina. And then we got the off week. So we're going to have to talk about, we need to win that game. Because if we have to talk about South Carolina for 2 weeks.
Yeah, if y'all want to take off, we can take off. If y'all want to take that week off, we can, or we can do it. I don't care either way. Either way is fine with me.
Oh, let's do it.
Let's do it. Keep the momentum going.
Yeah.
You need more content for your channel anyway, Boogie. You're not putting enough content out there.
You're slacking.
Only stream 6 days a week, twice on Wednesdays. I'll try to figure out a way to get some more content out there.
There you go.
All right, folks. Appreciate you coming. We'll see you next time on Sports Talk J, Talking Vols, and BVD. In the stream.